Welcome to the Retail Tech Podcast, where we talk about the full spectrum of technologies and implementation used in omnichannel and online retail. Make sure to subscribe to our newsletter at retailtechpodcast.com, and we always look forward to your feedback. Today I'm speaking with Troy Vosseller from the accelerator called Gener8tor out of Madison, Wisconsin. Hi, Troy. How are you?
Hi, doing well. Thanks for having me.
Great. Thank you so much for joining me. I wanted to ask you, I attended the Onramp Retail Conference, which your accelerator put up in Chicago a couple of months ago. And I thought it was a very good conference. And, since I'm focused on the retail space, I thought it definitely makes sense to learn more about what Gener8tor is, and then how you actually help the company. So maybe you can tell me what is Gener8tor, and then what are the goals.
Yeah, sure thing. So maybe starting with the Onramp Conferences is a good way to start. So one of the things at Gener8tor that we try to do is how best can we connect relationships that we have. And so on the one hand, we have relationships with startups, so startups that have gone through Gener8tor that are now portfolio companies of ours, as well as other startups in the ecosystem that we interact with corporations whom we may have a relationship with as well. So we know that the corporations increasingly, whether it's through formalized corporate venture capital arms or formalized corporate innovation units, they're looking and they're thirsty for new innovation, particularly amongst startups that could be potential vendors, strategic partners, investments, acquisition targets, you name it. And so as part of that experience, about 2 years ago, we started renting out stadiums. And in those stadiums, we would then put participating corporations in the luxury suites, so in the box suites. And each of those participating corporations would then meet one-on-one with all the different startups who applied to present to them. So it was basically like a speed dating matchmaking process. And those events, we had phenomenal success. However, they were industry agnostic. So we would have a company like Harley-Davidson next to a company like American Family Insurance, next to a company like Schneider National, which is in the trucking and freight industry. So no kind of cohesiveness. Nevertheless, both the corporations and the startups, they really like that format. There was some fun aspects, some cachet to the event in the fact that we hosted them at professional sports stadiums. So we did them at places like Lambeau Field and the BMO Harris Bradley Center, Camp Randall Stadium, and Soldier Field in Chicago. And we had a lot of success with that. So we wanted to make it more valuable to both the startups and the corporations. And so we started making these Onramp conferences vertical specific. So our first entry into that was with the Onramp Insurance Conference, which we held last spring at Soldier Field in Chicago. And at that conference, we got 30 of the top insurance companies who all sent their corporate venture capital, their corporate innovation executives. And again, they would each post up in a luxury suite at the football stadium, and we would solicit and recruit insurance-related startups from all over the country. And these are oftentimes Series A, Series B backed startups who then had the opportunity to pitch to these insurance corporations one-on-one. We also added a full day of conference programming. So we had a keynote speech, some fireside chats, panel discussions, etc. All that happening in one day. So we had a lot of success doing that, and we wanted to expand it to other industries, other verticals. And so retail was our next stop. So the retail conference, which you attended in October, also at Soldier Field in Chicago, we were able to work with companies like Target and Kohl's and Best Buy and Walgreens, all who sent their different executives to participate. And then we solicited startups in the retail and e-commerce industries, whether they're directly retail or they're enabling of retail and e-commerce, to then apply to present and pitch one-on-one to these corporations in the luxury suites. So we had over 230 startups apply for that opportunity. We had over 100 startups that ultimately were selected to pitch one-on-one with those participating corporations. And then, as you experienced, we had a full day of conference programming. So everything from the CEO of CB Insights to the founder of ComScore to executives from Mars and Mattel and Kohl's and Walgreens and Harley-Davidson and kind of you name it. So a great afternoon of that programming as well. So that's a little genesis of our focus at the end of the day is how best can we help startups. That's first and foremost our ethos. And then furthermore, to the extent we have these corporate relationships, how best can we connect the corporate relationships with startups? And that really was the genesis for Onramp. Now, stepping back a little, how this all got started is really with Gener8tor. So at the core of our operation is our accelerator Gener8tor, which I helped start 4 years ago. And we operate programs now in 3 cities. So Madison, Wisconsin, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and Minneapolis, Minnesota. And in each of those markets, we run an annual accelerator program. We take a very concierge approach. So we only invest in 5 companies at a time. And by doing so, we give those 5 companies our full time, energy, and attention. So full access to our network of mentors and potential customers and the corporate partners that I mentioned, as well as potential investors.
So that's 5 companies per city.
Yeah. 5 companies per city per year. You got it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
And so we've been at it now for 4 years. We just finished our 9th cohort, our 9th program. So to date, we've invested in 49 companies total. And combined, those 49 companies have gone on to raise more than $100 million in follow-on funding. So we've been fortunate enough to be nationally ranked. So for the past 2 years, Gener8tor has been ranked amongst the top 15 accelerator programs in the country, in the United States. And we're currently accepting applications now for our next program, which is taking place here in Madison, Wisconsin. So we're accepting applications online at Gener8tor.com now through January 4th.
Okay.
So you had asked. So you had asked a little bit, kind of what's the breakdown? What's involved in terms of startups that ultimately go through our program?
Right.
So if we were to break the program down, so the 5 companies that ultimately get selected, in the first 2 weeks of the program, we have what's called our mentor swarm. So we invite all the mentors in our network. These are subject matter experts, alumni of Gener8tor, potential investors and past investors in Gener8tor companies, and other serial entrepreneurs that we think can add a lot of value. In total, each of the 5 companies will meet with over 100 mentors in that 2-week process, either at our office or virtually. And it's basically like a speed dating process with the goal of how can we connect these 5 companies with as many smart, well-connected, intelligent, thoughtful people as possible, in the hope that maybe they glean a nugget of advice or information in that 15 to 20 minutes they have with them. Or maybe they get a customer out of it. Maybe they get a referral to a customer. Maybe they get a new hire or some talent referred to them. Maybe they find an investor or a potential investor all through that process. And we've had a lot of that. It's one of the things that when companies review our work, when they review their experience in Gener8tor, that they point back to that mentor swarm as something being extremely valuable. Then throughout the program, so it's a 3-month program, Gener8tor is, after the first 2 weeks of the mentor swarm, we, the Gener8tor team, meet with each company twice a week on a scheduled basis. So on Tuesdays and Thursdays for 1 hour each, we meet with each of the companies, focusing on strategy, tactics, however we can be of highest and best use. A lot of that time is spent us, based on our 4 years of experience, having invested in 49 startups. What are things that we think, the company should be looking out for, or what are things that we can help them with through introductions, through advice, through referrals, you name it. And then in the final month of the program, we really shift toward fundraising. So really helping the entrepreneurs put together and articulate their value proposition, polish their investor deck, and then schedule one-on-one pitch meetings with all the investors in our network. So that includes in-person trips to San Francisco, Chicago, Minneapolis, throughout Wisconsin, as well as virtual pitches with other investors throughout the country, all focused on raising money. So in total, like if we look at our last program, those companies pitch 75 unique investor opportunities. That could be angel investors, angel networks, angel funds, VCs, corporate VCs, family offices, you name it. 75 unique opportunities to potentially raise money. Then on average, companies emerging from the Gener8tor program will go on to raise $750,000 on average. And again, that's really part and parcel to getting them out in front of those investors early on in our process. We end the program with an event that we call Premiere Night. It's a demo day style event where we have over 500 investors, entrepreneurs, and community members who come out to see these companies pitch and give a demo on stage. Again, with the goal of how can we have yet again another touch point with these potential investors in the hopes that we can close them on investing.
Okay, yeah, I mean that sounds pretty intense, but really that's what it takes to get these things off the ground. Yeah.
It's definitely meant to be an intensive experience. We do require that at least one person from the company be in person, in residence during the duration of the 3-month program. That being said, we've invested in companies from all over the country, even internationally. So we have companies in Canada, Mexico, Boston, Miami, Los Angeles, Minneapolis, Chicago, Des Moines, Iowa, Detroit, kind of you name it. But you get out what you put in. So by immersing yourself in the experience, by becoming part of the community of those 5 companies that are going through the program together, as well as the broader alumni base of Gener8tor, that's really how I think you can best leverage your experience. And this is true of any accelerator.
Right.
You really get out what you put in.
And the network is really I think, the number one benefit, the advice and the network, typically. This is actually interesting. So the companies don't actually have to be present physically in your office?
We do. So we do require that they are present during the 12-week program.
Okay, at least
That being
one
said, we
person.
work with companies from and that being said, we have worked with companies from all over. So point being, these are people who see the value in our program and have relocated on a temporary basis. So there's no strings attached beyond that.
Okay.
But we really want them working under our roof so that we can really advise, coach, mentor, and make the most of that 12 weeks with them. And again, a big focus of ours is those customer relationships. So how can we leverage these corporate partnerships that we have through the Onramp Conference Series to best help the startups that are going through our program?
Right. So so you basically give them office space in your offices, right?
That's part of it.
Okay. Okay, cool.
So we give them office space, we give them all this programming, access to our team. We have associates and interns on staff that they have access to help them with everything from graphic design to business development. And lastly, we make an investment in the companies. So we invest up to $140,000 in each company. How that's broken down is upon acceptance to Gener8tor, we invest $90,000. So it's $20,000 for 6 to 7% common stock equity. It's $70,000 on an uncapped convertible note. And then for companies that end up opening an office or having a presence long term in Wisconsin, we have a partner fund called the Bright Star Wisconsin Foundation, which invests an additional $50,000 also on an uncapped convertible note into those companies. So all told, 20 plus 70 plus 50, companies have access of up to $140,000 in guaranteed capital. And then, like I mentioned, throughout the Gener8tor process, through that mentor swarm, through our weekly meetings, through that investor swarm process in the final month of the program, and through our premiere night demo day event, the goal is, how can we further help them raise money? And a lot of that is contingent on growth. So if we can help them get a customer, if we can help them get a corporate partner, that really helps them on the fundraising side of things as well.
Okay.
And that's a goal. That's a goal of ours.
Right. So just to be clear, the 20,000 is actually just for common stock, which is interesting, which is good because it's not preferred.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen most of the investors are actually looking for preferred, but I've seen also some of the more progressive ones are okay with common. So what's the difference as far as the founders of a startup are concerned?
Good question. We always want to have the same position as our founders. So we really align ourselves with the founders, the entrepreneurs that we're investing in. And so they have common stock. And so we think that's appropriate for us to have as well. We never take board seats. We never have any sort of extra control or preferred rights or anything of that nature. And again, it's meant to be that we can always be aligned with the entrepreneur and always be on their side and always go to bat for them so that when they have situations in the future, maybe it's with downstream investors or other partners or you name it, we can always be advocates for those entrepreneurs knowing that we have the same same class of stock as they do.
Okay. So, I've never been to Madison myself. I've heard so many great stories about it, and I know it's a beautiful city. What's the cost of living over there?
Good question. It's increasing, although it's still much cheaper than larger metropolitan markets. So much cheaper than a Chicago, New York, and absolutely much cheaper than a Bay Area somewhere in San Francisco. And so that's a big draw. It's very much a college town, so we're dominated by two things: state government. Madison is the capital of the state of Wisconsin, as well as the University of Wisconsin-Madison. So, a nationally ranked large Big Ten research university, which is a constant magnet for talent, both at the undergrad level, but in particular at the graduate level and the research level as well. We're also fortunate to be home to the Wisconsin Alumni Research Foundation, also known as WARF, which is the tech transfer organization of the University of Wisconsin. It's housed many great inventions, including most recently, you may have heard about a year ago in the news, Apple lost a lawsuit to this organization related to a patent on one of the chips in the iPhone. So it was over a $300 million judgment in favor of this organization called WARF. Case in point, you see a lot of great talent, a lot of smart minds, all who are attracted to Madison, and some of them who are then joining and entering the startup community as well.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I had not heard about that. That sounds like a great invention that finally paid off big time. Now, so let's say, for example, what would it cost, like an average cost for a team of 2 or 3 people that are coming over to stay as far as cost of living for planning
good
purposes?
question though. So if you were to get, let's say, a 2-bedroom apartment, I would say that can range between, $1,500 to $2,500 a month in terms of rent. I'd say that's the range. And again, it depends on location and how new it is and amenities and things of that nature.
Okay, but something close to like the office or in that same area?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Walkable, everything.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, great. Now, the other part of this, the perks that I'm reading on your website is, and you also mentioned access to staff interns, development, design, marketing, social media. Can you dig in a little bit more on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So at any given time, we have between 4 to 6 staff interns here in the office available to help. So everything from graphic designers, so it could be identity work, logo work, putting together sales collateral, or doing web design. It could be UI, UX, all the way to some of the interns who do programming, developers. So they can come in as kind of an augmented employee onto your team on a temporary basis during the program. I'd say the majority of them, and how our startups historically have used them the most, is around business development and sales. So helping them do lead prospecting, helping them put together lists of potential customers to go after. So doing a lot of that lead generation, lead cultivating, list preparation, things of that nature.
Okay. What about, so one of the questions I have is, initially, like maybe the accelerator programs really took off about 7-8 years ago, I think. I mean, they were always around, but they really became popular. And, initially, the companies with basically no product could get in, but now it's getting more competitive. What is, what's the sweet spot for you accepting companies into the program? What are you looking for?
Yeah, good question. So we've been fortunate that, as the seed market has gotten more competitive, or, arguably investors are waiting longer to see startups have more traction before they make an investment, we really are a beneficiary of that, because those startups that normally would be raising from, a seed fund or otherwise are now too early for that fund, and therefore are coming back down to the accelerator tier, which we're really, grateful for. We're a beneficiary of that. We see an increasing number of applications for each of our programs. For our most recent program, we had 638 applications for 5 slots. So very, very competitive. And remember, we do 3 programs a year, each with, over 500, in this case, 638 applications.
Wow.
But in terms of what we're looking for, ultimately we're looking for people. Are these people that we think are really formidable? Are they going to be people that can just ultimately execute and just kick butt at figuring out how to bring the product to life, how to continue to grow and sell that product in the marketplace, how to forge partnerships, how to schmooze investors? All those things that's what we're looking for. We're also looking for teams that have all their technology in-house. It's very difficult for a startup to not only raise money, but really difficult for them to scale if they have to outsource all their technology. The line I like to use is, I wouldn't want to hire a law firm that outsources their legal work. Similarly, I wouldn't want to invest in a technology company that outsources their technology, right? So that's another thing that we're looking for.
Okay, so if
Secondly,
it,
we're
sorry,
looking for
go ahead.
market size. So is this something that's venture backable? Is there a sufficiently large enough market either existing today, or are they entering a growth market that is growing rapidly that could justify a large venture capital investment so that that company can grow quickly and capture that market? And then lastly, all things being equal, we love to see traction. Will the dog eat the dog food? Prove it. Do you have customers? Do you have revenue? How much are you growing? And our belief is that an object in motion stays in motion, and that's true for startups generating revenue and already having customers.
Okay, so are you looking for some kind of PMF, product market fit, or are you open to?
No, we're investing before that. Our range will be anything from a company at an idea stage, but where we've really come to know the founders on a personal basis, and we really believe in them and want to make a bet on them, all the way to companies doing $30,000 of monthly recurring revenue on a subscription model. I'd say on average, 4 out of 5 companies are entering our program with their post product, their post revenue, and they're doing between $5,000 to $10,000 of monthly revenue. I'd say that's really our sweet spot.
Okay, and is there a difference between revenue model, for example, subscriptions like SaaS versus product
We're
sales?
Good question. We're industry and business model agnostic. So we've done everything from B2B SaaS to B2C e-commerce. We've done industries as varied as healthcare IT to IT security to CPG companies in the retail space. So we're open to all different business models, all different industries, all different verticals. As long as we think we can add value and we see an opportunity, that's something that we're interested in investing in.
Okay, so as far as the management team of the accelerator, it's you and 2 other gentlemen, right?
Yeah, so myself and Joe Kurgis are the 2 managing directors of Gener8tor. So we run the day-to-day operations of the Gener8tor programs taking place here in Wisconsin, in Madison and Milwaukee. We have another managing director in Minneapolis named Mark McGuire. We have a whole further team of support staff and others, people like Sarah Wolt, who you met, who runs the Onramp Conference series, and
Right.
Maggie Blickerman and Abby Taubner, who run our G-Beta program, which is kind of a free accelerator for early stage companies, specifically with a local tie to wherever we have a program, be it in Wisconsin or Minneapolis. So a team in total of 7 full-time employees, as well as the associates and interns that are also at the disposal of the startups that we invest in.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I definitely can. It's easy to say things. It's a lot harder to do things. So,
Yeah.
I was pretty impressed with the quality of the conference that you guys put together. And I mean, for
Thank you.
me, that I was brand new to the organization, I mean, that basically tells me that, I mean, there's substance. So,
Thank
and
you.
I mean, the fact that you've been at the top, in the gold tier in the Seed
Yeah.
Accelerator ranking project, I mean, I mean, you don't definitely need my my
Hmm.
recommendation. You already have a lot of credibility, but as far as like other founders that don't know, for example, these things, I think it just goes a long way to see things. So for me, I came up in the technology field, then I got into the business myself, and I, management is a lot more than just the technology of it. And a lot of times
Yeah.
things fail not because the technology is bad, because it just was not managed correctly. So,
Yeah.
I mean, putting together a conference requires good management skills. So that definitely is something I can
Well, thank you. We're
vouch
glad you
for.
enjoyed it, and we appreciate that the kind words and that endorsement.
Yeah. So, what about? So you mentioned that you have some e-commerce companies. Are there like maybe a couple that you can
Yeah,
tell me
definitely.
about?
On the e-commerce side, we have a company called Bright Cellars, which is a subscription wine club. It was started by 2 MIT grads who devised an algorithm to pair people with 4 bottles of wine per month based on their taste preferences. So consumers go to brightsellers.com, they take a survey basically asking them things like, what's your favorite kind of chocolate? What kind of tea do you drink? And what those questions are meant to do is parse out that consumer's tolerances for things like bitterness, sweetness, acidity. And so from that data, then the team at Bright Cellars, put it through their algorithm, and they pair that consumer up with 4 bottles of wine each month delivered to their door. And then that consumer can go back on to Bright Cellars and rate the wine, whether they liked it or not, So it kind of becomes like Pandora for wine. So the more wine you drink and the more wine you consume on that subscription basis, and the more you rate the wine, the better pairings you end up getting in the long run. So that's one. Another one is Pretty Litter. Pretty Litter is a subscription cat litter service. So in addition to delivering a monthly supply of kitty litter to your door so that you don't have to lug a big heavy bag of kitty litter around the grocery store or up the stairs or whatever the case may be, it's delivered to your door. It also has a diagnostic component. So the uniqueness of Pretty Litter's product is that based on the acidity of the pH levels of the cat's urine, Pretty Litter, the crystals inside will change color. And if they change to certain colors, that's a signal that you should take your cat to the vet, because it may be early indicators of a cat having a kidney infection, a UTI, any sort of disease or infection. And so it also provides peace of mind to those cat owners. So that's another one in the e-commerce space. We have a company called Men's Style Lab in Des Moines, Iowa. So they compete with Trunk Club, but really trying to go at a slightly lower tier. So make the service and quality of a Trunk Club available at a slightly lower price point. So it's a concierge clothing service for guys who either hate to shop or they want a little more style influence from a professional stylist. We have a company called Carson Life based in Miami. Carson Life is a line of health and beauty products aimed at the Hispanic market. So they have some great celebrity endorsements, some celebrities on Televisa and Univision and Telemundo, and having TV shows and soap operas and other things of that nature. They're currently sold in all the Walmarts, CVS's, and Walgreens in Puerto Rico, and they're looking to expand to the continental United States here yet this year. So that gives you some sample of the retail companies that we've invested in the past.
Okay.
We also have some, I should also point out, we also have some companies that are, what I'd say, enabling technologies of retail. So we have a company called Review Trackers in Chicago, which aggregates reviews for businesses that have multiple locations. So let's say you're a chain of retail stores and you want to see what are all the Yelp reviews, the Google reviews, if there's industry specific things. So maybe you're a car dealer and there's websites where people look for car dealer reviews. They'll suck in all that information into a single dashboard and provide analytics around it. Or another company like Grocer Key, which sells to grocery stores. They're a white label platform that allows independent grocers to offer online ordering and delivering capabilities. So it allows those grocers that might not have enough money to build their own e-commerce site to allow for online ordering. It gives them a beautiful white label service to do that.
Oh, that's a pretty good list. And the fact that you talk like the founders of these companies is really good. I mean, that's good. That means that that just tells me that you care about these companies, each one of them, and you know about them. You're not managing at a distance. So
that's correct. Well, we work hard to be the most value-add investor to those entrepreneurs. So, after spending 12 weeks with them in the trenches and, every waking hour, we forge a really tight bond, and that's something that we're really proud of, that Gener8tor community.
So one of the things that, maybe in the press, they don't pay a lot of attention until something blows up big time, is really the hardest part of starting a company and being a founder. What are some of the most difficult things that you see companies going through as they get into the accelerator and in the 3 months?
Yeah, good question. I'd say for some, it's how do you get out of your comfort zone? So for most founders, they're very obsessed with product. Either they're developers or designers by training. They're very focused on how do we tweak the product and keep tweaking the product. And oftentimes that's not what is needed in the early days. And really their time is best spent living with customers. Get whatever product you have, get it out in the marketplace, start selling it, knowing that your product will improve 20 to 100% year over year. Have the courage of your conviction to get out there, start selling what you have, and really focusing on sales. So a big part of what we try to do is really push the entrepreneurs to focus on sales. So oftentimes when people get kind of nervous or they encounter turbulence, they want to go back to their core competency. They want to go back to their comfort zone. So if you're a developer, you go back to developing. And so again, our big part of our job is how do we keep them out of their comfort zone, and which oftentimes means how do we keep them selling.
And of course, as a founder and really product-based founder myself, I can tell you that if something doesn't sell, easy, it must be the product, so I have to add more
Right.
features to it.
Everyone thinks that. You got it right.
So what about the concept of a pivot? Have you had any of those happen?
Definitely, yeah. So some of the our most successful companies have been companies that have, in the final month or even weeks of the program, have had to completely scrap what they were doing and do something completely different. I think a great story is a company in our portfolio called Understory. They came into the generator thinking they were going to do weather pollution monitors. That then pivoted to small micro weather stations that picked up wind that sailors could use. So things like yacht clubs and sailors on lake environments. None of these things really picked up traction. And so we went to the founder and we said, well, what's something you know really well that others don't know so much about? And he was a master's degree student in atmospheric sciences at the University of Wisconsin. And he said, his expertise is in hail. And we said, well, let's build a company around hail. And that led to him founding a company today known as Understory. And Understory builds weather stations for detecting severe weather events. So everything from detecting hail in terms of where the location of where the hail falls, the size of the hail, how the velocity of the hail, as well as things like wind gusts and wind shears that typical weather stations are unable to pick up. From this, they create a microgrid that allows for better weather prediction, as well as better historical records of what the weather was like at a given time. So then they sell this data to insurance companies who are doing everything from crop insurance claims to roof claims, things of that nature.
That's another interesting business, is the data business. A lot of times we like companies, even e-commerce companies, they get into the process of building and selling actually their products, and in the process they capture so much data, and we don't think that this data is actually valuable. And it is. It has, all data actually has a lot of value. It's just knowing who to market it to and how to package it, probably.
Yeah.
So that's
I think
another
you're absolutely correct.
business again. So great. So one last question I have is that, what do you think? So we're approaching 2017 at the speed of light, and what do you think we're going to see as far as like the funding environment and maybe some of the technologies that you see really picking up in 2017?
Yeah, great question. We've been fortunate that we continue to have, tremendous deal flow, great startups who are forming new companies. We think we're at an advantage here in the Midwest in that we have just tremendous amount of corporations that are headquartered here in the region that we can leverage the benefit of companies that we invest in, companies that go through Generator. I don't see things slowing down too much. I am anxious for more M&A activity, whether that's all the way up to IPOs or acquisitions happening prior to IPO. We're looking for more liquidity. I think all investors, can say that. But at the end of the day, I think we're going to only see an acceleration of innovation, meaning you hear these statistics that the average lifespan of a company in the Fortune 500 is, 1/3 or maybe even more severe of what it was, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. I think we're going to continue to see that creative destruction play out, meaning corporations, it's really innovate or die. And, many of them are solving this problem through, corporate venture capital arrangements, through more M&A activity, et cetera. But there's going to be another breed of them who simply can't innovate fast enough. And we're going to have newcomers enter the scene that begin as startups that are going to have some lasting, worldwide impact in a good way.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely we're hearing news about a government effort to bring back the money that a lot of corporate, big corporations have stored overseas, and then SoftBank just announcing they're going to invest $50 billion in U.S. startups. This is pretty interesting.
It is. So
looking forward
all
to
good
seeing
stuff.
how that happens.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Sounds great. Thanks for the time.
Have a great day.
You too.